Hey guys, so welcome back to this tutorial series. In the last video we were able to set up our input dialog fragment. So I'm going to pull up the emulator so that I will show you exactly what we did in the last class, just to refresh your memory. So this is our app. So if we click on this add button, we are able to have this input fragment. This will actually help us to save our data to Firebase. So we designed this layout and set up this fragment, and also we set up this material spinner that we have here. Okay, so this is what we did the last class. Now in this class there's a couple of things that we are going to be doing. So firstly, we're going to learn how to set up Firebase in our app. So we're going to download the packages and we're going to install it in our app, and we're going to test the connection and ensure that everything works well. And secondly, we're going to be saving our alumni information or data to our Firebase database. So guys, without wasting much time, let's jump right into it. But before I forget, if you're yet to watch the previous videos, my advice is that you watch them, then you come back and join us in this particular video. The reason is so that you can be in sync with everything that we've been doing. And if you're yet to subscribe to the channel, please consider hitting the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that you always get notified whenever I make this kind of video. Now let's get right into it. So adding Firebase database to our project is quite straightforward. The first thing we need to do will be to go to Firebase console and create a new project. So what I'm going to do is to pull up my Google Chrome and go to console.firebase.com. So log on here. So this is the Firebase console. We're going to go ahead and add a new project. Now I'm going to call this Xamarin Firebase because that's the name of our project. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect this and I'll click on continue. So we're going to go ahead and create our project. Boom. So we are done. I'm going to go ahead and click on continue. So guys, our Firebase project is ready. But before any other thing, we need to go ahead and add an app. As you can see, we have iOS, Android, and the web, and Unity. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Android. So it's asking us for our Android package name. So to ensure that we put the right thing, I'm going to go back to Visual Studio. Now I need to go to our manifest, our Android manifest. Okay, so this is our package name, but I want to change this. I don't want it to be Xamarin Firebase.Xamarin Firebase. So the easiest way to do that is to go to Project and go to Xamarin Firebase Properties. Okay. So here I'm going to click on Android Manifest. I'm going to change the package name to something nice. So I'm going to have com.ufinix.xamarin Firebase. So now that we have this, I'm going to go ahead and copy it. After copying it, ensure to save this information by using Ctrl S. So this will save this information. So I can close this out. Now I need to return to Firebase console. I'm going to paste this here. So this is all we need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and click on register app. Boom. So the next thing we need to do will be to download the Google services.json file, because this is actually very useful. So we're going to need to add it to our project later on so that everything will work just very well. So now that we have this, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. So we've added an app to our project. Now the next thing we need to do will be to add a database. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and click on database. So there are two options here. We can actually use Cloud Firestore, which is a very new one. I'm going to actually be making a video tutorials on how to use this eventually. But for now, our focus is on real-time database. So I'm going to go here and click on create database. I'm going to select start in test mode and I'm going to hit enable. Boom, our database is ready. I'm going to go ahead and add something. So as you can see guys, we've added our database. So the next thing we need to do will be to set up our app in such a way that it can start connecting to this database. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to Visual Studio. The first thing we need to do will be to install Firebase SDKs. Okay, so I'm going to right click here and go to manage Nugget packages. So I'm going to browse for Xamarin.Firebase. So these are search results. I'm going to scroll down to where database is. Okay, so this is Xamarin Firebase database. This is the one we're interested in. So I'm going to go ahead and click on install. So you can see that it's going to install alongside of it with a lot of other dependencies. So I'm going to click on OK and accept the licenses. Boom. And we've successfully installed Xamarin Firebase. Now I'm going to close this out. So now that we have that, the next thing we need to do will be to add the Google Services JSON file that we downloaded earlier on. We need to add it to our project. So I'm going to go ahead and click here on Solution Explorer. And on our project title, I'm going to right click and go to Add Existing Item. So in Downloads, we have Google Services JSON. I'm going to go ahead and add it up. So we're going to go to Properties. The build action, we need to change it to Google Service JSON. So guys, sometimes you might not see the option to set this as Google Service JSON. What to do here is to close your project. Before then I have to save all. Now I'm going to go ahead and close the project. Close the solution rather, and I need to reopen it again. You need to go back to our Google Services JSON and go to Properties. So when you drop down, you can scroll the list. You can now see Google Services JSON. So I'll select this. So that's all we need to do there. So guys, the next thing is to initialize Firebase indeed. In earlier versions of Firebase, sometimes you might experience some issues. You initialize your Firebase and it's not well initialized. So I came up with a method of actually smoothly initializing your Firebase in such a way that it cannot fail. But guys, like I earlier said, I have a knack for keeping things organized. So I'm going to need to create a new folder. I'm going to call it Helpers. Now in our Helpers folder, I'm going to add a new class. So this class, I'm going to call it App Data Helper. So inside of our App Data Helper, I first of all need to make it public, and I'm going to make it a static class. Okay, so why I want to make it a static class is because I want it to be accessible, throughout the entire application. So wherever you are within the app, you can have access to every method that we have in this particular class. So we're going to create a method that will return an instance of our Firebase database for us. So to do that, I'm going to say public static Firebase database. Okay, so I'm going to call this method get database. Now we need to resolve this by bringing instances of Firebase database. Okay, so we'll have that resolved. Now I'm going to go ahead and say var app is equal to Firebase app. So we need to resolve this as well. Firebase app dot initialize app. So I'm going to pass in application dot context. So next will be to define our Firebase database. I'm going to call it database. Now I'm going to perform a check to ensure that our Firebase was correctly initialized. So I'm going to say if app is equal to null. That is, if this initialize app statement failed to initialize our Firebase app. So the next thing I'm going to do will be to force it to initialize our Firebase. Okay, so I'm going to say var options. This will be equal to new Firebase options the builder. So I'm going to hit set application ID. So the application ID, we can get this from our Google services.json. So I'm going to go ahead and open this file, Google services.json. So this is our application ID. So I'm going to go ahead and copy it. I'm going to paste it here. So next will be to set our API key. We can also get that in our Google services.json file. Okay, so I'm going to copy this. So we're going to paste it here as well. So this is our API key. Now the next thing will be to say set database URL. We need to go back to our Google Services JSON. So this is our database URL. So I'm going to copy it as well and paste it here. Now the next thing will be our storage bucket, which you can get from our services.json as well. So this is the storage bucket. Bam. I'm going to say .build. Now I'm going to say app will be equal to Firebase app .initialize app application .context bracket options. So this will go ahead and force our database to initialize with these options that we created. Now I'm going to say database will be equal to Firebase database dot get instance from our app. Now finally, I'm going to return our database. I'm going to say return database. Boom. I'm going to go ahead and say else database will be equal to Firebase database dot get instance from our app. Boom. Now our Firebase is completely set up. So the next thing we need to do will be to go to our dialog fragment and save the user input to Firebase database. So I'm going to go to our dialog fragment. So here I need to add a click event handler for submit button. So I'm going to say submit button.click plus equal to and tab. So this is the submit button click event handler. So what I want to do will be to capture the information from full name test, department test, set test, and status spinner and send it to Firebase database. So to do that, I'm going to come here and say string full name. Remember guys that this is a test input layout, okay? So I'm going to say dot edit test dot test. So this will give us the value for our full name. So I'm going to have to do the same thing for the department. So I'm going to say string department. This will be equal to department, and also I have to do the same thing for the set. So the last piece of data that we need is the status that was selected, by the user. Now to be able to get that, we need to add an item selected event handler for the status spinner. So I'm going to go to this method that reads setup status spinner. I'm going to say status spinner dot item selected. Okay, I'm going to press tab. So this will be the item selected event handler. So the next thing I need to do will be to declare a new global variable, which will take in the value that was selected from status spinner. So I'm going to come here and say string status. So here I'm going to say status will be equal to status list and e.position. So what is actually happening here is that the item selected event handler returns a position for us. So we use the position as an index in the status list to retrieve the appropriate status. Okay, so to ensure that we don't make any mistake, we're going to add a check here. We're going to say if e.position is not equal to -1. So this check is very necessary so that we don't run into errors later on. So now that we have the status, the next thing we need to do will be to save this information to our Firebase database. So I'm going to go back to our submit button click event handler. So to be able to save data to Firebase database, we need to make use of hash maps. So I'm going to say hash map. I will need to resolve this reference. So I'm going to call this alumni info. This will be equal to new hash map. So the next thing to do will be to add information to this hash map. So I'm going to say alumni info.put. So I'm going to put the full name first, and I'm going to pass it our full name variable. Now the next alumni info.put, I'm going to pass our department. So a hash map is more like a key value object. So as you can see, the full name is the key and the value is full name, which is a string variable. Okay. So finally, we're going to put the status. So the next thing to do will be to pop up a dialog that will verify that we really want to add this information to our Firebase database. So I'm going to say android.builder. I'm going to call it save data alert. So this will be equal to new, and I'm going to pass my activity to it because that's the context we are inheriting from. Okay, so this is actually very long. So what we can do here is to use an alias to reduce the length of the code, at least for the namespaces. And to do that, I can copy this and go to the top of our code. I'm going to say using support v7, which will be equal to this. I'm going to copy support v7. So instead of having all of this, I can clean this up and use support v7. So guys, this is how to make use of alias. It might actually come in handy sometimes. So I just quickly went ahead and showed you guys how to make use of that. Now I'm going to go ahead and say save data alert dot set title. So this will be the title of our dialog, which will be save alumni information. The next will be the message. The message will read, are you sure? Just to verify that, yeah, you really want to save this information. And finally, I'm going to say save data alert dot set positive button. So this is going to be the button we will have in our light dialog. So we're going to set a button. So what we did here was to make use of a lambda expression. So it's very short and straight to the point. And this is the point where we save our data to Firebase database. So if we want to retrieve this information, we have to first of all have a reference of this part. And also to save information on Firebase database, you will need a path to where the information will be saved. So I'm going to go back to our Visual Studio. I'm going to say database reference. So reference is more like a path to where the information will be saved. I'm going to call this new alumni ref. This will be equal to, so here we'll need an instance of our database. I'm going to say app data helper. But guys, if you really don't like this method, you can just go ahead and copy the code and put it somewhere here and call it on the onCreateView method. It will still be the same effect. But this is more like a way of keeping your code pretty organized and clean. So I'm going to call getDatabase.getReference. So our reference will be alumni, and I'm going to add the push. So this push will generate a unique ID for the information we want to save to our Firebase database. So finally, I'm going to say new alumni ref.set value, and I'm going to pass in our hash map alumni info. Boom. And finally, I'm going to say this.dismiss. I'm going to dismiss this dialog. So this is when the user clicked on continue. It will go ahead and save this information to Firebase database. But whereas the user didn't continue, maybe you want to cancel, you don't want to save anymore. So the next thing we need to do will be to add a negative button. So I'm going to say save data alert dot set negative button. So the title of the negative button will be cancel. So we're going to make use of lambda expression again. So what I just need to do will be to dispose this dialog. I'm going to say save data alert dot dispose. So this is all we need to do. Now to verify that everything works, we're going to need to run an app and test it out. So let's go ahead and test our app. Okay, so our app is fully running. So we're going to go ahead and click on add. Okay. So let's go ahead and add the full name. So this is my full name. Say economics. Say my set is 2009. My status is graduated. Yes, I graduated, yeah. Now we're going to pull up our Firebase database and also our app. I'm going to click on submit. So we have an error here. We need to fix this. So it said that department test is equal to no. So we're going to head back to our XML, the XML for our dialog fragment. So we're going to look through our code. Okay, so this is where the problem is coming from. So we're going to save this. I changed it to lowercase and I saved it. So this will fix the error. Now let's go ahead and build our app. So why this didn't error out from beginning was because I have another resource that is named department test, but it's not in this view. It is in our alumni row, and what we are inflating here is new alumni and not alumni row. So this wouldn't error out, but will always give us a runtime issue, which is what we got. Okay, so before we go ahead and run our app, let's kind of cross-check our code. So finally, we needed to say save data alert.show. So we forgot to add this earlier on. So we are ready to rock and roll. Now guys, let's go ahead and run the app. Okay, so our app is fully deployed. I'm going to go ahead and click on add new alumni. So I want to see everything happen. So I'm going to pull this up. my Firebase database. Now I'm going to go ahead and input my own information. So guys, feel free to put any information you like. So department, I'm going to use economics, and set will be 29, and the status will be graduated. Of course, I graduated, yeah. I'm going to go ahead and click on submit. So this is the alert dialog that we created earlier on. So it's asking whether we're sure. Yes, we're sure. Boom. So guys, our data has been added to Firebase database. So this is the information we provided: department, full name, set, and graduated. So guys, this is exactly what we want to achieve in this class. So stay tuned in the next class when we get into other stuffs. So if you really like this video and you're not yet subscribed to the channel, please consider clicking the subscribe button and turn on the bell notification button so that you can always get notified whenever I make this kind of video. But for now,